Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to Taiwan. Welcome to Taiwan Live TV. How's everyone doing? I'm out here in the park, just hanging out. And I've been doing some experiments with my. I have to power the thing from my phone, and I thought that I had it all worked out, and I actually brought the pink mic with me down here to the park. But not everything I owned is USB-C. So I have a hub that's USB-A. It's a 3.0 hub. And I can get it to connect to the phone, but it just doesn't pass the audio with the OTG connector, the on-the-go connector. So I had to abandon that idea. So we're just, straightforward here. And I kind of like this, my mask off, I kind of like this dark mode here. And, we're in dark mode, so we got Guinness. How's that? Fist bump. Mike, how are you? All right, so then we're going to crack this. This will be a step 2. Oh, yeah, it's foaming up. It's a long way from Dublin. George, how are you? Fist bump. I like that elbow cough. That's funny. So this is my magic glass. Ooh. And it's interesting because I'm pouring dark beer in it. And boy, this stuff, Guinness, right? It looks like motor oil with a head on it like ice cream. So cheers to you guys. Okay, thank you. So how's everyone doing? Hey, George is working on some cool stuff. He's really busy. But things are working well, and George and I have a plan, and I'm not going to tell you about it yet. But it's something that you guys can join in on, actually. It'll be cool. It'll be really cool. So anyway, yeah, there's something big in the works. Yeah. So what's been happening? I came back the other day. Came back on Monday. It took about, 6 hours to get back from Kaohsiung. But today, Taiwan had a bunch of power outages. And nobody really knew why. So kind of funny. But everything's back in action, for the most part. But I want to show you something. I was in Kaohsiung, and I was getting on the light rail. They call it the LRT, light rail transportation, and it's based on an old Japanese narrow gauge system that was used during the sugar production area, because a lot of those big warehouses down in Kaohsiung were housing sugar. This is pre-World War II. And so they had this right-of-way, and there's actually some original track. Well, they didn't want to use the original track, so they ripped it up, of course, and modernized it, but it's a narrow gauge light rail. So we're at one station, and I saw this beauty. Matthew, fist bump to you. That is a Japanese-era coal-fired steam engine with a coal car on the back. And if you look carefully to the far right, you can see the nose of yet another type, a completely different style of steam engine. And they're both steam engines. I confirmed it by looking at them. The interesting thing is, those panels on the front are kind of like a train in the Thomas the Train series called Hero. So Mike wants to know, the drinking glass light turn itself on, pour liquid in? Yes, it does, because it has little metal contacts embedded in the plastic, and they're connected with springs down to the circuit. Now, I was drinking one time at Athula's. You remember him, the Sri Lankan man that does the curry. I was drinking it at Athula's, and something happened. I forget what happened. I was doing something, and I knocked it out of my hand or something. And this thing went flying. It's just plastic, you know. And it went flying. And the whole bottom piece off here, right up here, came off. See, there's a battery holder, but this whole bottom piece came out. And the springs sprung and got messed up. So I went home and took a good hard look at it, and I just put it back together, and it works. Put the springs back in, made the contacts. I mean, I understood what the circuit did, because basically, the two contacts come up into the glass, and they're flush. They're just metal. They look like little metal rods. It's hard to see. And when the liquid pours in, it completes the ground circuit. So that way you don't have, you know, it's not like the B plus on the battery. It's the return circuit. Some liquids are more viscous than others. So, for example, if I pour water in this and I drink it, when the water is, you know, gone, within 2 seconds, the light shut out. Whiskey's thicker, more viscous, and when I turn the glass up, it'll still light for a second or two. Same with beer. I'll show you in a minute when I get down to this. So there are some things that last longer. Of course, the beer has foam. As long as, I mean, it's a sensitive circuit. You can moisten your fingers because that reduces skin resistivity by a tremendous amount. Stick your fingers on there and make it light up. But yeah. Now, I know you guys like food. My wife and I went to a place called Formosa Zhang, which is a big chain. And in the the foreground on the right is some pork meatball and daikon soup, and it's amazing. And right behind that, on the right side, is a soup that my wife gets, which is a kind of a traditional chicken soup with like a Taiwanese style dates in it. The center, the orange or the yellow, is bamboo shoots, and they're great. Then right behind that is a vegetable we call a vegetable. And those two other meat dishes are basically pork rib meat. It's fatty meat, and boy, that stuff, good for what ails you. Chinese medicine, Chinese doctors have known for centuries that eating fat like pork fat and duck fat is beneficial for health. Don't listen to these people about cholesterol and eating fat. If you want to lose weight, you have to add more fat to your diet. And you can fact check me all you want. That's what Dr. Sear says. Dave, fist bump to you. All right, now Mike, here we go. Look, we're at the last little gulp of this. I'm going to gulp this down before I pour any in, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so I've upended the glass, and she's still got liquid in it, you know, so. But Those are hard to see. If I can find the... no one. Oh, there it goes. Went off. Bamboo shoots are really good. Bamboo is a tool and a building material in Asia that's been indispensable for centuries. You can use bamboo to make charcoal for filtration. You can use it to make pots for cooking. You can use it for making pipes for transporting water. You can use it to make weapons or hunting implements, and you can eat it. It's amazing. And I have some videos that I shot back when I used to use a glide cam. This is before you could get these motorized gimbals. Place in Meowlee, a friend of mine, his cousin's father had it. And we used to go out there. I talk about it in my blog a lot. We talk about the cabin in Meowlee. And her father, Becky's father, asked me, did I want to go watch him dig up some bamboo shoots? I'm like, heck yeah, I got my camera. He went out there with one of those little small hoes. And they grow really fast. And he just, would shove the hoe in, like right underneath it, rock it, and pop it out. You have to peel them, and you have to know how to cook them. It's one of those foods that, if you don't know how to cook it, you can make it bitter. And garlic's like that. If you don't know how to cook garlic, some people pre-cook garlic because of that. You can make certain foods bitter. And, boy, it's not pleasant. But he washed them up. He chopped them up. And I cooked them, and they were great. Now, my favorite bamboo shoots, there's actually a haka, which in Chinese we say kejia. Heard me talk about this. Haka is a Chinese ethnicity that's been present in Taiwan for centuries. They're known to be honest, hardworking. That's what they're known for. And in Hakka cuisine, they have a bamboo soup. Whenever I go to Hakka restaurants, I got to see bamboo soup, please. Bamboo soup. It's amazing. And what's cool is the way they cut it. You can clearly see that it's bamboo. It'll be sliced in half, and you can see the chambers in it, and it's pretty interesting. But I never really knew how much bamboo was used, for so many different things. And I, until I moved to Asia, and I saw, I guess it was some TV shows, some documentary stuff, and how you can just make so many things. There was one show that I saw that showed a couple living in Vietnam. And it went like this, like they wake up in the morning laying on their bamboo mat, which lays on the bamboo floor of their bamboo home. And it just goes like that. And so the wife goes and draws water in a bamboo bucket and brings it back and puts it on the fire, made with bamboo charcoal, and then sets bamboo teacups out on the bamboo table. It's just like that. It was amazing, and then the husband takes a couple of spears with him made out of bamboo, and he's going in the forest trying to hunt some pigs or something, and it was like, wow. And when I was in the Philippines, we had the roast pig. The one, I forget, there's a Tagalog name for this, I forget, but when they do the Filipino style roast pig, they stick a bamboo pole all the way through the pig, from the stern to the bow, comes out his mouth, and then they put it over a pit of hot coals and they rotate it. So they got one guy, and they tie a crossbar. They got one guy going like this on the bamboo thing, for 4 hours. They have a bunch of guys that they spell them, but man, it's really something. So bamboo is extremely important, and it grows all over the place in Asia. And of course, here in Taiwan, there's tons of it. And the funny thing is it's beautiful. You know, I mean, it's just, you look at it and say, okay, so it's green, and my experience with bamboo in the United States was I used to eat some of it, but I would go get a bamboo fishing pole. That was about it, you know, or some kind of like some kind of pole with a brush on it to clean something. It just wasn't that important. It wasn't necessary, but a lot of communities in Taiwan have little stands of bamboo, and they leave them there because it's respected. You know, it's a respected plant. It's earned the respect of people all over Asia for being like a mighty and noble and useful plant. But there's one thing about bamboo. And Mike, you know, you said you've never had bamboo shoots. I hope, because of course there's bamboo in the States, but there's nothing like this. And Dave, you can chime in on this. There's nothing like being in a bamboo forest in Asia. Because bamboo is a type of grass. You know, it just grows tall and straight. It grows very fast. But because it's so densely packed, they're always rubbing against each other. So these things can be, I've seen bamboo like 7, 8, 9 meters. It's just like crazy high, right? And so they're all intertwined. So when the wind blows, they rub. And it makes music. It makes tones. You hear them go, these kind of tones, right? But it also makes like percussion. You'll hear like, and like this kind of stuff as rough edges. It's really something. What I need to do is I need to take a spatial recording, not outer space, but you know, a spatial recording. I need to find. Now we talk about this. I need to go find a bamboo shoot. I need to go find a bamboo forest, a stand of bamboo, hopefully away from the city. And I just need to sit there and record it. Yeah. See, that's the thing. It's so amazing, and you actually don't have to cook it. And a lot of people don't, you know, when they're desperate for food. If you're stranded somewhere, you know, and you find a bamboo shoot, and if you can dig it up, you can just peel it and just bite it, eat it. It's not going to be the most pleasant thing uncooked, but it'll sustain you. It'll sustain you quite well, enough to last for several days. And the other thing you can do too is if you've got a knife, you can make little things, little vessels to contain water. So if it rains. Yeah, bamboo, I'm going to say that if I had to survive somewhere, and I could have any kind of wood I wanted, you know, and an unlimited supply. I mean, oak is nice. Oak is great for firewood, but boy, if you want to do anything with it, I mean, you got a log this big around. You got to hew it. You need to be really good with an axe, because there's no way that you could set anything up and saw that. You'd have to hew it with an axe. But if I had, you know, it's like a machete and an unlimited supply of any kind of wood, it'd be bamboo. Because with bamboo, I can make a bow, because you can use bamboo fiber for the string. I can make an arrow. I can shoot an animal. I can bleed it. I can butcher it. Because you can sharpen bamboo. You can even use it as a chisel. It's amazing. And you're going to think I'm nuts. But one of my friends from Australia was in Taiwan doing a job. And he knows that I make bike parts. And I had a bunch Okay, I'll answer in a second. I had a bunch of bike lugs for, frames, like this seat lug where the top tube comes in and the seat tube comes in. On the front where the down tube and the top tube meet to make the fork crown. I had all of those lugs. And he's getting ready to go back to Australia. He said, I'm going to make a bike frame out of bamboo. Could you give me a couple of those lugs? I said, sure. Came over to my house and gave him a bag. I said, take as many as you want. I got about 400 in that bag and 300 in that bag. So take how many you want. He took like 5 or 6. But there are bicycles you can buy in Taiwan that are made out of bamboo. Now, Spatial, S-P-A-T-I-A-L, A-I-L, S-P-A-T-A-I-L, Spatial, not special, Spatial. There's a recorder, a handheld field recorder that I'm interested in, and I'll probably get it. It's interesting because it has 4 microphones, and the front is the typical XY. But the back, they have what they call mid-sides. Now, mid-sides is something that we really didn't talk about, in the 80s and the 90s. But, mid is anything up in the center of a mix, an audio, and the sides would be the stereo information. And with the mid-sides, you can balance that. So you can actually change the stereo width and move your width way out here and get this huge soundstage. Well, this recorder that I'm interested in getting, it's not that expensive. It's the Zoom H2N. It's not that expensive, but this thing records 4 tracks. 2 tracks of the stereo XY and 2 tracks of the mid-sides. And with those 4 tracks, and of course somebody like me that has a recording studio and all kinds of mastering equipment and console and everything else I need, I can produce some incredible spatial recordings. And the things that you can do with the recordings, you can actually make music with them. So that's what I'm talking about doing, is going out and recording some stuff. Some guys go to the airport, or they just go to a roadside, because all right, just listen to this for a second. If you're listening on earbuds, okay, I'm going to be quiet for like 10 seconds. Just listen to this. Besides that, there's an ambience here. Do you hear it? It's hard to describe. In mixing, we call it air. There's kind of a sound. It's not a hiss. But what it is it's the highway that's over here, that's 4 or 5 kilometers away. It's the airport that's 25 kilometers over there. It's, people's water heaters, washing machines, and all kinds of stuff in the neighborhood that's far away, and you're not hearing the direct sound. What you're hearing is what we call multipath. These sounds are being reflected all over the place. You're not getting direct. Of course, I got direct, from the motor scooter and from this idiot dog over here. But all this other stuff is just an ambient thing. And the few times I worked, like on movies or on videos, the video guys would do something that was really bizarre, I thought. They would want to take a measurement of room tone, or not a measurement, they would want to take a recording of room tone. And at the beginning of every scene, they would set the microphones up the way they wanted them and everything, and get the levels, and they would record the scene. And then at the end of the scene, the director would say, "Okay, everybody freeze," and everybody just stopped where they were and said, "Okay, we need 20 seconds of silence for some room tone," and then the audio engineer would go, "We're live." then you wait 20 seconds, and then you go, okay, cut. And the reason they did that was because sometimes in the studio, in the movie studio, they have to re-record things, and it's called Foley sometimes, where they add external noises or external sounds, or they might just have to re-record something like dialogue. And when you're in the studio in front of a microphone and you're saying the same words that you said on the soundstage, it sounds different. So what they do is they overlay a piece of that room tone underneath it, and it's what we call ambience matching. Now, of course, we can do that with software today. I have software. I have a copy of Isotope's RX9 Advanced, which is their latest version, and I can take a clip from something, and I can another clip, and I can match the ambience so they sound like they're recorded in the same room, on the same mic, and it's pretty amazing. And there's another piece of software that's $500 that's called Dialogue Match, and I don't have that because I don't do a lot of industrial work, with narrations. But if you were going to do a bunch of field recordings with narration of different people for interviews, that Dialogue Match is what you need, because it makes it all sound like it's from the same album. It's pretty amazing. So the spatial recordings have an interesting use that has emerged in the 21st century. And I'll tell you what it is. People are making music with these kinds of sounds. Dave and I were talking about this the other day, and I showed Dave a YouTube video. There's a YouTube video called what is it? The hidden synthesizer in your DAW, or the synthesizer that your DAW has that nobody told you about. Something like that. DAW. DAW is a digital audio workstation. For example, every note is basically just a frequency, right? So A, like on the guitar, the A string is 440 hertz, 440. So if you take an equalizer and you have a bell and you raise it at 440, and then you narrow the Q down and you really jack that up, and I'm talking about like 15, 20 dB or more, all the way to the top size you can get it, and especially if you band pass, that is, you high pass, low pass, and cut out the other stuff, all of a sudden this ambient sound has a pitch to it. Now I'm going to demonstrate this. Like if you just go like, okay, it doesn't sound like that, but you can go, right, and you can go, I just went, right. That's what we're talking about doing. That's a very kind of a simple, maybe some people might say a dumb demonstration, but it very clearly indicates that you can make those kinds of notes just with ambient noise, just by limiting the bandwidth. And that's all I'm doing by using my hands, is limiting the bandwidth. If I go like this, that limits a tremendous amount of bandwidth. If you want to imitate somebody on the radio, you can just go like this, K4WVX, and bandpass that, okay? So, it's really interesting. And a lot of guys, they make money doing this. They go out and they say, oh, honey, I gotta go out in the forest. There's a rainstorm. The wife thinks he's out of his skull. He puts his parka on and he sits out there for 4 hours getting and the rain on the leaves and all that stuff. And then while she's asleep at night, he comes back and he uploads all this stuff into his DAW. And by morning time, he's made, or she, doesn't matter, a complete set of notes that represent the chromatic scale, okay? So what he's done is he's equalized it and bandpassed it and chopped it up, so that now he's basically created a synthesizer. And people are selling these packs. They're selling these ambient packs. It could be like $20 or $50 or $100. It doesn't have to be much. Actually, the cheaper it is, the better it is, the more people will buy it. Because you can have 4 or 5 guys buy it for $2.99, or you can have 20,000 guys buy it for $9.99. You know. So yeah, it's really something to think about. And so I don't have the time for that. I understand it, and it's cool. And sometimes I use EQ for that, like you know, like a snare drum. Sometimes the snare drum has the wrong pitch or the wrong tone, and I don't really want to get into using highly sophisticated software to physically frequency slice like the Eventide harmonizer and tune it, which I have done before. I used to use the Eventide harmonizer 910 in the 80s. We didn't have any software, and I would tune the snare drum with that. But I've just used EQ and put a really, really high Q and a really narrow Q and jack it up, and you hear it going as you're moving, and as the guy's hitting the snare drum, it's going to wherever you want it, and you can bring it down and you kind of widen it a little bit to soften it. So that's how you can tune drums. So anyway, boy, I don't know how we got into this discussion, but it's pretty interesting. At least I think so. I hope you guys think so. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and get that recorder, because I think a recorder like that is very useful, because sometimes I just want to go to a park and play my guitar. Now here's the other cool thing. This microphone is also a USB interface, which means that in theory I should be able to plug it into this phone, and Prism Live Studio should be able to use that microphone as a source, and then if you put your earbuds in, you will get fully spatial audio. Now the half-bulb device behind the microphone, what Mike is talking about is these baffles that, if you look at them from the top, they're semicircular. It's a semicircular thing that's filled usually with acoustic foam. Oh, well, Mike, I'm talking about software EQ. The only hardware EQ that I own is on my Soundcraft Ghost. Now my Behringer X32, of course, every channel has 4-band EQ, and they use encoders, but that's all in the console. An external equalizer? Nope, no idea. Everything is done in a DAW. I use Reaper, and Reaper's built-in EQ is incredible, but I never use it. If I need EQ outside the console, and it's only for special purposes, I use a special EQ called Split EQ by Eventide. And the reason it's so special is because this equalizer splits the spatial information away from the tonal information. Which means if you had an acoustic guitar that was getting lost in the mix, you could solo one of the bands and you could find the frequency of the pick, and just grab the spatial handle, the transient is what I'm trying to say, the transient handle, and jack up the transient so that becomes more prominent without the tonal aspects of it. And you can pan the transients separate from the tones and get like a very interesting stereo spread. So it's just so much you can do with that. But I want to talk about the thing behind the microphone. No, I never use those, and I'll tell you why. Those are the biggest marketing gimmicks I've ever seen. we talked about microphone pickups. When you sing into a mic, vocal mic, generally speaking, you want a cardioid pattern. It looks like a heart, basically. There's a lobe in the front and there's a null in the back. The null is where it rejects. So you have the null facing away from you and you have the lobe facing towards you. So when you're singing, you're on axis. So why do you need like an anti-reflective system on the null side? No, where you need it is behind you. So when I sing, I have all kinds of absorbent material behind me, so the microphone doesn't get reflections off of that and then into the microphone. It just gets the direct sound from my voice or from whatever instrument. So, yep, that's right. It's behind the mic where it doesn't need to be. And the only reason that I can ever think of using that is if you somehow were stuck with a microphone that only had an omnidirectional pattern, 360, and you wanted to hide the back of it. I never use those. We didn't have those in the 80s or the 90s. That's a new thing. That's a home recording. That's just crap. It's for home recording. And I've seen them for like $89, $100. Somebody's making money selling stuff that people don't need. That's all it is. Yeah. You don't need the absorption in the null. You need the absorption in the lobe. The null rejects sounds on its own. Oh, you're talking about a parabolic microphone. Yes, I have. I've used them. But I've used both shotguns and parabolics. Shotgun mics, with those really long mics, is what they call shotgun mics. Those are the ones that you see on sound stages where suddenly there's a microphone in the, long microphone comes in a shot and you see it's going like this. And sometimes like Rodney Dangerfield or some comedian or something will be on a talk show and they're like, is this thing on? And the mic will come down, testing 1, 2. And there's a guy who's the guy that used to do I think it's for ABC, the Love Boat. That guy would use a shotgun mic really close. And he did a demonstration on TV where, it was on a talk show where a guy says, the host said, can you do some of your famous intros? And he says, yeah, but I always use a shotgun mic, so you need to bring the mic down. And they always keep it out whenever it goes into the shot that's bad, right? So the boom operator, he's trying to, she's trying to do their best to keep it out of the shot. So the guy's like, well, bring it down. And the boom operator's like, and the host goes, go ahead and bring it down. And they're like, okay. So they're bringing the boom down. The mic comes down close to him, and he's like, gets right up to it, and he's like, the Love Boat. And everybody went, because it sounded just like it. What you're talking about is a parabolic dish. It's the same principle as a satellite dish. Okay, there's a parabola in the back, but your pickup element has to face into it, and it has to be mounted at the focal point, right? So that's why if you put a mic in there, there's always a sliding adjustment. So while you're monitoring it, you can go like this and go, hold it right there, lock it down. That's the sweet spot. So that's what that's for. Yeah, and they work great. They're just not very stealthy. They're pretty conspicuous. I know what you're talking about now. Sorry about that. Parabolic microphone. Just think of Arecibo, or think of Jodrell Bank, or any of the famous astronomical radio telescopes. It's the exact same principle, just different frequency. They work great. I know a guy in Boston that came up with a plan to make a receiver for radio signals using a snow saucer, which is something they have in North America. It looks like a UFO. It's just basically like an aluminum bowl. The kids slide down a hill in, when it snows. And then they took a coffee can and a piece of RG8 and stripped back the RG8 coax and stuck it in the side of a coffee can and pointed the coffee can at the center, of this snow saucer, and just put some like fiberglass rods down to hold the coffee can. The guy made a parabolic dish receiver for like, I don't know. I think the snow saucer was $10, and he just used the coffee can left over from drinking coffee. So there's some cool stuff. Not at all. But very conspicuous. No, very conspicuous. Because people see that they see the dish, But the thing is, people who are not technical, they may think that you're transmitting or beaming something at them rather than trying to receive something from them. Shotgun mics are way more stealthy, and you see them on top of cameras and stuff all the time. They're a big long microphone with usually with a foam windscreen on it. That's way more normal. That was funny. So yeah, I remember one time, this is funny. See, with the network, I was a vice president of engineering for the network, and we had to deal with satellites all the time, satellite downlinks. We had dishes up on the roof, and I never tried to aim one. We would fine tune it, but this is funny. We had a guy come down, so there's an array of satellites, and they're on the meridian, and it was like, I don't know, a couple hundred of them, and you're looking for one, and you want your dish aimed at that one so you can get the stuff off that bird, and it's got multiple frequencies. And anyway, so this guy came down and he was gonna aim the dish, and there was a kid there, it's a novice kid. And it's like, 11 o'clock in the morning. And the kid's like, how do you know where it is in the sky? And for somebody who doesn't know anything about celestial navigation and GPS and stuff, that's a perfectly reasonable question. How do you know? He goes, well, it's right up there. Can't you see it? He goes, no. He says, it's right there. Can't you see it? And the kid's like, looking him. In the meantime, he's using GPS, and he's just telling the motor to, track, and when it gets close, then you start receiving the signal from it, and you fine tune it till the as it's going by, the needle goes up, and then it goes back down. Oh, go back, and then stop. So that was funny. Fine dining. Fist bump. How you guys doing? I appreciate it. I've been doing those by the canal streams for like 5 years, So this time I brought my guitar, but anyway, I'm working on a new version of a song. Dave knows what I'm talking about, but so next time I do one of those, have a couple new songs for you. But so he's using the PC. He's using GPS coordinates. He's telling the motorized dish where to go, but he's like, "Can't you see it? It's right. I'm telling you, it's right there. You can't see it." I mean, the kid's like, "Well, I think I see it." So at the end of it, he had him convinced he could see it. So really, I don't really know what's going on in the States. Since 2010, I've spent a total of 4 days in the United States, so I don't know what the heck's going on there, but around the world, satellite dishes are going up more and more, but they're not just for TV, because, you know, with Starlink, that's the only way to get it. You have to have a dish, because you need aperture. You need something bigger than just a regular antenna. You can't just put up a stick, or even like a Yagi. You've got to have a parabolic dish, you know. But yeah, I don't know. See, I think a lot of it, though, Mike, is that people, the primary delivery system for entertainment is the internet, and that's just how it is, and that's how it's going to be for a long time. Back when I used to be an engineer, staff engineer at Cybex, they had this big place called Cybex Institute at every piece of exercise equipment that the company made, and they had this endorsement with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I said, listen, what you guys need to do is you got this, basically what amounts to is a television set, and you need to hire Schwarzenegger in here and do, Cybex TV. And the reason they didn't want to do it was they stated the number of households in the United States that had high-speed internet wasn't enough. So apparently they didn't understand the concept of archiving and making this content available in the future. But so, hey Frank, how you doing? Yeah, how you doing? Came back from... Oh yeah, Brother Steve. How's he doing? Yeah, that sounds good. I like that. Oh yeah, you mean the twisty antenna? I mean, yeah, the rotor, yeah. When I was a kid, my dad was the first color TV tech in the state of Florida, so when I was about 15, I already knew the direction of all the TV stations, that were in St. Petersburg in Florida, where we lived. And so whenever somebody wanted a TV antenna, they dropped me off. I was like 15, 16 years old. They dropped me off with the tools and the antenna in the box and the pipe and stuff. And it's really cool because Florida, man, it's just like, I'd get on the ladder and, I'd say, where do you want the antenna? And they said, well, where's a good, we'd figure it out and, close to get the wire run into the TV and stuff. But I said, okay, well, so, all right, so I'll put the pole right here. Okay. Well, I'd climb the ladder and I'd just take a drill and I shoot this bracket on. Okay. And then I would just take the pole, stick it on there, put the U-bolt, but I'd loosen it. I wouldn't tighten it. I'd loosen it. Florida is basically a pile of sand. I would grab the pole and just, jump up and down on it and would shove the base of it down into the sand, and then I would take my ratchet and I would tighten down the U-bolt, and that was it. But the antennas, we had a VHF and a UHF, and the VHF that we had was really strange. It was basically now that I'm a broadcast engineer and I understand more about these things, that antenna was more baffling to me than anything. There were two basically U-shapes like this that met in the back. Okay, so they were just U-shapes. They met in the back. It's a type of dipole, and the reason that they're shaped like this is because it's multi-frequency. You see, the higher frequencies can be received at the closer distance, and the longer frequencies, the lower frequencies would be received by the wider. It's kind of like the disc cone. So basically, it's a multi-frequency or wide band antenna, but a very simple design, and you didn't need that much gain because the TV station was like right over there. And then we had a Yagi antenna for the UHF, and the way the stations were oriented, they were always 90 degrees. So the funny thing is, I'd drive around my neighborhood and I see these, and I go, "Oh, that guy, that's not 90 degrees. I bet that guy has trouble with the UHF." And I would sometimes be able to, in a position where I could talk with some of these neighbors, say, "You got problems with your UHF?" Like, yeah, it doesn't. It's kind of snowy. It doesn't come in as good as the lower channels. And say, "Okay, well, I know what to do." I'd go up there and just loosen it and just crank it a little bit. But that was fun, and I would just have the people downstairs at the TV, because I mean, you kind of know where the sun. You kind of know, okay, the TV station's sort of over there, but it might be a little bit this way, a little bit that way. So I was like, yeah, you know. So put it on channel 13. I go, okay. So all right. So tell me when it gets good. You know. Okay, it's good. I said, okay, now I'm gonna move it, and tell me if it gets better or worse. And I move it. They go, oh, it's better, worse. And I would move it back. I said, okay, and that's it. And I said, and here's what I want you to do. I want you to go, I honestly forget what the UHF channels were at that time, but that's go up and, you know, whatever it was, 56 or 38 or whatever, and check those. Oh, yeah, that's good too. Okay, fine, it was done. I would put up an antenna in 45 minutes, you know, the mast and everything. So that was a lot of fun. That was a good experience for me when I was a kid. So I ended up doing some tower work as an adult, and as a ham radio operator, doing a lot of stuff. But eventually I became vice president of engineering for the Talk America Radio Network, the second largest talk radio network in the United States, and got to play with some big stuff, big power. And I also had my own talk show, so it was nice. Frank remembers those days, and it's really interesting to be able to crack a mic and know that at least 10 million people are listening to what you are saying. Try not to be stupid. Try not to say anything really messed up, you know, but hey. So tonight's beverage is Guinness, because it's dark out. And I've got my LED glass, which cost $1. And it's pretty interesting because, you know, Guinness is like motor oil with a head like ice cream. So it's really funny how you only see the LEDs at the bottom. So people were asking me about the power outages today in Taiwan, and we were at one of our factories today, and so I took a couple pictures for you guys. Let me see. This is me. That's my wife. That's Mr. Lien. Mr. Lien runs the main factory that we use in Asian Castings Consortium, and he's got a special tool behind him there on the arbor press that he's made just for us. But he's a really good guy. We've been doing business with him since 2006, and he always takes care of us. But he has this sand casting, and this is a sand casting. I want to show you how high that sand casting is. That sand casting, if I stand next to it, I got to reach about as high as I can reach to touch the top of that radius. It's like a giant water wheel or something. I didn't ask him. I should have asked him. But you see off to the right, that's in the bottom corner, that's Mr. Lin standing there with his mask on and the sun behind him. So that's quite you can see how big that thing is, right? So I want to show you something else that's a little bit controversial, because, you know, I've been doing production for a long time, and, you know, I've done production in the United States. I've done production in Taiwan and China and Thailand, and safety standards all over the world are different. And I've had people be real critical about, of course, I don't personally get involved in running the factories. I run the consortium, but the individual factory managers are responsible for what they do. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know why they don't like it either, but I like it. So, let me just tell you, people here in Asia they have safety equipment available to them, but they just don't use it. Like I was last week, I was up in Taipei talking to my friend Li Xiang, and there's a guy using like a grinding cutoff wheel, and he was cutting like the granite curbing, you know, with a cutoff wheel, right? So he's got this thing, and he's going like, wow, and it's like it's making this. I mean, I was across the street and down the block, and I put my earplugs in because I carry earplugs with me everywhere that I go. I carry earplugs, and I carry the Flair Audio Company's Commerce with me. And there probably would be SolidWorks. That's it's been the best one for years and years. There are some people still use AutoCAD, and some people will convert from AutoCAD, but it's got to be SolidWorks. And I get a lot of SolidWorks files, and sometimes I'll get AGIS files too. But so, you know, he obviously, I mean, the 7-Eleven you can buy 3M, those orange 3M earplugs, you know, and the companies provide them, but they don't use them. They don't use safety glasses or nothing. So at this factory, these guys, not like aluminum, when aluminum is molten, it's just barely below the threshold of glowing. You can make aluminum glow, but most of the time when you take it out of the pot and it's in the crucible, and you may have a small crucible like on a fish pole, you know, and you're pouring, it's just silver, it looks like mercury. But copper is a different thing. I mean, it is glowing orange hot. And so these guys they're taking out of the big pot, they're taking a small pot on a pole, and they're walking over to a sand mold and they're pouring in. And these guys are wearing like plastic flip-flops, you know. And they're no mask on. He's got no bib on, no boots, you know, no chaps, nothing. This guy's wearing shorts and a t-shirt, and he's got no mask on. So what they have is a bunch of huge fans that blow the fumes away. So like when you see the video, you know, the guy's pouring, the fumes are blown away from him. Now some people say, well, you know, if they don't have this personal protective equipment on, if they have an accident, it'll devastate them. It's like if he accidentally poured that molten copper on his foot, you know. Yeah, but they don't. I do. But here's the thing. There's a couple of schools of thought on that, and I don't mind telling you. You know, when I knew some accidents in the States, and one guy actually had, and they wonder why they can't hear. But see, Frank, Chinese is so intelligible because it's so consonant rich. I have seen Taiwanese people on the phone in an environment where I couldn't even hear what they were saying, and they're having a conversation with somebody on the other end, and they can hear. I don't know how. I am in awe of Chinese communication because it's just how it is. Chinese language communication is just. We would try to talk in English on here. But it's so consonant heavy, and it's monosyllabic and very simple with compound words. So you know, it's anyway. So there were two accidents in particular where one guy. Sometimes the mold will rupture. You know, you pour it. It's like a sand mold. You pour it in, and for some reason it blows a hole out the side of the sand. It's just packed sand, and you know there's a stream of molten metal coming out, and it hit the guy in the leg, and it rolled down, and it went inside his boot, inside the boot, not the outside. So, of course, he's you know screaming in agony, and the guys are you know ripping the laces off his boot and trying to get it. By the time they got his boot off, his foot basically was cooked. Another guy I heard of. This is terrible. This is horrible. The crucibles, depending on, you know, how many molds you're pouring, a lot of times in the furnace, they have a rig that'll come down, you know, on a crane. You've got the remote control with a, you know, I'm talking about with an I-beam crane, and the hoist comes down, and you put the rig around the crucible, and it just holds the crucible and it picks it up. And there's a handle on it. You guys maybe have seen this in movies. There's a handle on it. Sometimes there's a wheel on it to turn the crucible to pour it into the mold. And so this guy was, you know, using the crane and doing everything right and guiding it with his hand, and he's walking over towards the line with the molds, and something failed on the hoist. And the crucible kind of fell and jerked, and it splashed a bunch of molten aluminum on the guy's chest, and it went under his bib and his protective equipment and basically cooked his chest. Again, couldn't get it off fast enough, you know, laying on the floor screaming, what are you going to do, ripping his stuff off, you know, and then they just, I mean, it is horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying. So some people think, there are some guys that say, I don't want a boot on my foot, because what's going to happen is the metal's going to hit it, it's going to burn a shoot out of it, okay, I'm not going to say that word, it's going to burn it bad, and it's going to roll off, but it's not going to, the heat's not going to soak in there, and it's not going to burn the bone and stuff. And like some people say that if that guy maybe had just a cotton shirt on or something like that, you know, it may have just rolled off and, you know, burned the skin, but not so deep. But because it was trapped in, I mean, there's a lot of thermal inertia in metal, and you know. So I'm going to show you a video of these guys working in the main factory that does a large portion of our manufacturing for us, and I don't want you to be horrified when you see these guys, but I'm going to tell you something. Since 2006, they've never had an accident. So these guys are very, very well trained. So there's something to be said about that. And these guys are Indonesians. Now you guys, fine dining. Okay, now you guys got to follow fine dining, and you look at the name, the way it's spelled. It's a play on words, because their whole life is a play on words. I think from watching you guys interact, you guys are a really cute couple. I admire you a lot. Yeah, it is. Yeah, 15 years. Yeah, I admire you guys a lot. And what I like about you is you don't take yourself too seriously. These guys, okay, fine dining, they'll do like a Michelin rated review on M&Ms. I'm telling you. Everything they review, they have the same level of seriousness. I think that's amazing. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn my mic off, and I'm going to show you this video real quick, because I just want you to see this. But I wanted to give you the background first about the personal protective gear and why they're not wearing it. But I want you to notice that, you know, the other shirts are the t-shirts and stuff are blowing in the wind. These giant fans are blowing the fumes away, and these guys are experienced. And you know, and the other thing that I want to point out is in the American factories that I worked in. Is now you guys are the best, fist bump. In the American factories that I worked at, the molders, when they make sand castings, put the molds on an elevated roller assembly line. So if a mold broke, you know, from a height, the pressure, you know, it would squirt out and it would go somewhere, you know. These guys pour on the floor. If a mold breaks, it doesn't go anywhere. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't go anywhere. It's like the difference between taking a garden hose and laying it on the ground and picking it up, if you can understand what I mean by that illustration. So let me cut my mic off, and I'm going to play this video for you, just so you see. I want you to see it's like the fires of you know, a dragon or something. It's pretty crazy. All right, and see what he was doing at the last thing. He poured the first mold, and then he had a little bit left over, and he poured it back in the second mold, because what happens is as soon as, well, shortly after when you pour metal into the mold, it starts to cool, the metal starts to cool and freeze, and it always shrinks. So they usually top it off a little bit to make sure that the mold has plenty of material in it, because what it is you don't want the shrinkage to occur in the part. So they always have an extension that they cut off of material that's high, and any shrinkage that happens in that's called a riser, and so it shrinks in the riser, but it continuously feeds the part that it's connected to in the bottom of the mold. So that's what they were doing. So that was copper, and you could see the guy in the background. That's where the furnace was in the background. Tell you what, let me show you that again, just because I gave you a little more background. Behind the guy is the opening shot is he's at the furnace, taking a pot of it out. But I want you to look at the furnace behind him, and notice again the t-shirt's blowing, and how he finishes pouring one mold, and then he tops off the previous mold. So later on, which I didn't, video, the next stage would be that he would take the next pot for the next mold and then pour that back in the previous one again. So take a look at this again. Right, I told you he's wearing plastic sandals, but no metal's going to get caught in those sandals, and with nothing to cut off and nothing to the plastic will vaporize. And so basically what they would do at that point is just take his foot and dump it in ice water, and because the idea is to take away as much of the heat as possible. But yeah, see, that's like I said, there's a couple schools of thought. I mean, I like personal protective equipment. On the other hand, I mean, personal protective equipment is great, but if you fell in a river, it might drag you down to the bottom. So, it just depends. It depends on the situation. I might be inclined to take some duct tape and tape up the front of the bib there or whatever to keep metal from pouring down. But yeah, like Fine Dining said, it's horrifying. When I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh. Of course, that guy's done, I mean, he lived, but the whole front of his body is scar tissue, and I don't know. It's human imperfection is a bad thing. It's a bad thing. So I didn't mean to be so morbid. So anyway, George and I are working on a project, and my next tune is going to be finished in April. And I'm going to release it, in all the usual places, Spotify, Apple Music, everything else that, they've ever released on. So I'll let you guys know when that happens, and ask you to please add it to your playlists. But it's so funny because I've had this tune in my mind for a long time. It just took a while for it to come out. But, this whole thing with what's going on in the world, and we just need to start treating each other like we're brothers and sisters of the same human family, and I don't know why that's so hard. To me, the whole idea of national sovereignty for countries is ridiculous. The whole idea of race is ridiculous. There's only one race, and it's It's human. And that's what I teach my daughter, because I ask her sometimes, you know, how many races are there? And she'll be, don't be silly, Pop. There's only one. You taught me that. I'm like, yeah. And so what matters about a person? And she always says, their insides matter. Their outsides don't matter. What they look like or anything doesn't matter. That's my kid. That's the kid I'm raising. That is the legacy that I'm leaving. I don't know why that's so hard to do. I don't know why people don't think like that. You know, it just gets me. Yep. I mean, particulates, yep. At least that stuff is big. It's not 2.5. That's like, you know, that's big stuff. But that factory is a very, very high ceiling for that purpose, for all the smoke to rise up and leaving the factory floor clear, because you saw in that video the factory floor is very clear. The smoke blew away and went up, and they have the removal system at the top. It's inside. That factory is about 4 floors high inside. They got a huge beam crane. It's pretty amazing. So anyway, this tune is called All We Need, and I added the piano tracks, and I've been working diligently. I did a string arrangement, and I've been working really hard on fine-tuning the strings, and boy, oh boy, I think I nailed it today. I spent some time at the console, and I think I really nailed it. So the string sound, well, I'm really happy with them. Really, really happy with them. So the only thing that I'm going to tell you is that I'm not going to tell you the whole thing, because I'm going to wait a little while. But we are going to shoot a music video here in Taiwan. And that's what George is going to work on with me, is the music video. But I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do. So it's pretty cool. That's very cool, actually. So we'll be shooting a music video in looks like April. Now, I have a plan, and my plan is to include every single person that wants to be included. Everybody in my, line group, everybody on our, band group and whatever, that they can participate in the video. So I'll have some announcements, for that later. But let me do this. Let me post the QR codes for the band group. That's one for the studio, and this is one for Taiwan Live TV. If you don't know what band is, it is a Naver app. The guys who make the Line app, L-A-N-E, sounds kind of funny because I'll send you a message online, but Line actually is the name. It's a proper name of an app. And Band is another app, and I think it's misnamed, but it's originated in Asia. And Band is just it's kind of like it's sort of like Facebook, but it's completely private, and it's based on, you can make it public if you want, but it's based on mobile phones. There is web access, but it's a completely different concept than Facebook. It does so much more. You can live stream to it. In addition, like you can with Facebook, but it's a collaborative app, and a lot of companies are using it to manage creativity, of their staff. It's pretty interesting. So anyway, I have one for the Phoenix Media Ford Studio and one for Taiwan Live TV. There's not a whole lot of content on there, and it's pretty new. And there's not so many people there, but I'm blessed with having a very closely knit and tight group of followers, and I will take quality over quantity any day of the week. One of the things I worry about is having something blow up and then I lose contact with my core followers because there's too many people, you know, like in the old Periscope days, sometimes I would be on the, thanks Mike, the old Periscope days, sometimes I would be on and there would be, you know, I don't know, a couple thousand people. I just couldn't keep up with the, you know, the comments. One time I think I had 30,000 people. I was on a Reddit live stream. I had 430,000 people. It's like, do you think I could keep up with the comments? I just stopped looking at them. So I like this. I'm on YouTube. I got 5 viewers. No problem. I can keep up with that. I'm going to have to change the battery. I've taken this out, drinking a couple of times. I'm going to have to change the battery. Yeah. Oh, the Bondo. Yeah, I know. The problem with the Bondo, see, is it's not smoke. So yeah, it's dust. And it's not gonna. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Now, I just gotta let you know, Frank is using his wife's account, Susan. This is Frank, an old friend of mine from, gosh, 30, 35, 40 years ago, back in Massachusetts. He's a body man. My car got wrecked, and he fixed it. He's like, it was amazing. Did a great job. Yeah, Periscope. Yeah, I think most of the people who know me now knew me from Periscope, because there was a huge gap from when I was doing PC-based live streaming in the 90s until we did, you know, mobile phone live streaming. I used to do our recording sessions. You know, the last album that I made, I had a 12-hour recording session, and I had, you know, the maximum capacity of viewers that we could have on the live streaming Reflector server. And you know, during breaks where we're breaking down, you know, and setting up to do another recording, I'd have the assistant engineers setting that up, and I took the camera around. It was a tethered camera on a cable, but I'd, you know, show the multi-track machine and the console and all the upload stuff that we, you know, would almost never use today, because it was just like all those things are gone. There's no replays. Nobody recorded them. You know, that would be quite an interesting vintage thing to go, you know, to go back and look at. But I want to tell you something, as a recording artist, you know, and from a long time ago, one of the coolest things I ever got, the coolest emails I ever got, I got an email from a guy who had watched our live stream in the studio while I cut the vocals on a tune that he heard on the radio a couple of months later. I love that kind of stuff. That was great. He's all excited. He said, "Hey MJ, man, I was driving down the street, man. Your tune came on the radio." I was like, almost drove off the road. So, got to be careful. Don't drive off the road, okay? So when you do this music video, this is gonna be the first. I quit the music business, man, because of corruption. You know, I got blacklisted from my single wasn't allowed to chart and all kinds of nasty stuff they did to me. So now that it doesn't matter, and now that things have significantly changed, and I'm still not too old to do it, this is my return to the business. But it's under my control. I control my publishing this time, and I control my distribution this time, and I have my own recording studio in my house. I control everything. I don't need anybody. I do my own mastering, and you know, I have 2 consoles, and so I'm doing basically old school kind of recording. but the results are very, very modern because, I'm using modern technology. It's a hybrid situation. You guys know all of this stuff, so. But I think you'll be very happy and pleased with the results that I'm getting from on the new record. I'm just trying to clean this up so it turns it off. So I can't wait to show it to you. So I have a little more guitar work to do, and the next thing I'm going to do is, I always do drums last. I just use a drum loop for my my drum machine just for timing, but I'm actually going to play the drums on pads because I just don't like to use loops. I'm going to play the drum parts and I'm going to sing it, then I'm done. The last tube TV. I had a friend of mine in Lynn named Paul. Actually, Frank knows Paul. And Paul had a TV shop, and he had a 19-inch. I don't know what brand it was, but this Paul used to get trade-in TVs. Someone would buy a new TV, get trade-in TVs, and he repaired this one. It was actually very nice. It was a nice TV. Of course, it was 19 inches, but it was also like 25 deep. It was very deep and very heavy. That was the last CRT-based television that I remember owning, because what happened after that was I started watching television on my PC. When I worked at Cybex, they had an exercise. They had a virtual reality exercise system that they had developed, and I think it was 1997. It was way ahead of its time. And they had sourced a VGA monitor that was a CRT tube that was like, I think it was 32 inches diagonal. I mean, for a CRT, this thing was huge, and it was like a computer monitor just scaled up. And it looked like something from Ant-Man or something, where all of a sudden it just blew up. My father saw it. He said, "That's not a monitor, that's a monster," is what he called it. And so I had a TV card, and the TV card was able to accept the output from my cable TV box. So, I was watching, back in those days, Iron Chef and all those other cool shows they had at the end of the 90s on my computer, and it was really convenient. And of course, eventually we just went to the flat screen. So that 19-inch TV was the last one that I owned, because when I came to Taiwan, I rented rooms that had CRT TVs in them, but I didn't own them, And there would be some like Chinese off-brand, $60. His TVs were cheap. So, but I'll tell you what we did have. When my wife and I first met, in 2005, we bought a 32-inch anamorphic flat-screen TV with stereo speakers. And in 2005, that was outrageous. We spent over $1,000 US on that thing. So it was, it's changed. It's crazy. And we kept that TV until my daughter decided to decorate it with a crayon. And I made her watch it for a couple more months. She'd like these cartoons, and every time the cartoon would come on, I'd say, "You'll notice how your cartoon has a mustache that wasn't there before because you decorated the TV." So it's funny. But it was on the way out. But we had that TV from 2005, I'm going to say at least until 2015. It lasted at least 10 years. And it was pretty nice. It had picture-in-picture. It had a bunch of different aspect ratios, all that you could change from the remote control. So it was ahead of its time. But I mean, if you spent $1,000 today on a TV, you'd get a monster TV. So now I have a TCL. It's made in China. I paid like $350. It's 55-inch 4K. In my studio, I got a Samsung curved monitor. It's 32-inch. It's nice because you're looking at the waveforms and stuff. It's a nice curved monitor, and I have a pair of studio glasses that look identical to these, the same frames, that don't have any long distance view. There's only medium and short range. And on that monitor, I can work all day. Both these glasses are blue light blockers. And that monitor was, $180. So yeah, I retired. I retired a computer. I had an MSI. It was a Core i7 with 16 gigs of RAM, and 2012, and it's a monster computer. 27-inch AIO touchscreen, really useful. The touchscreen was amazing. I used the touchscreen way more than I ever thought that I would. I used it like in Photoshop and stuff. I used my finger, for adjustment brush and stuff. But I'm using it now with Plex software as a media server. All of my movies that I own, digital media, are stored on that computer. And like my big screen TV downstairs has the Plex app on it, so I can just watch any of those movies on the media server on the third floor. But that computer was really, really nice, and it has a TV card. The previous computer I had was a 17-inch laptop from Asus. That was a monster computer when it came out, and it had the Windows Media Center, and it had an RF port and a cable TV port. And so my cable TV cable, I just screwed the adapter on and plugged that into the back of my PC, and I was watching TV on the PC for years. So, I've been a PC on TV guy for a long time. But now, as you were saying, the satellite dishes, they're going out of style. The main delivery system for entertainment these days is the internet. There's no question about it. I spend most of my time watching movies would be on YouTube, so it does fly. I didn't like the plasma TVs because there is an inherent danger with plasma TVs, but it doesn't have to do with anything like with your eyes. It's that might be a topic for another story, because it kind of sounds like a conspiracy theory, except it's not a conspiracy. Because you guys heard me talk about my meteor experience when I was a young kid, and I heard a meteor. I heard this whooshing noise overhead, and I looked up and there was a meteor. I don't know if it became a meteorite because it stopped. I mean, it looked like it burned up, but it tore across the sky, and then it went dark. And it took me until I was an adult to realize, hey, the sound was concurrent with the visual. How can that be? Because the whole time, when I was a kid, I lived in Florida. There's MacDill Air Force Base, and there's Tampa International Airport. There's jets flying everywhere. So you'd hear a jet, and you look up where you hear the sound, but the jet's over here because it's, behind. So there's a reason why the meteorite audio was concurrent with the visual perception, and that's because it's not audio. It's because plasma forms around objects that re-enter the Earth's atmosphere due to heat friction, and it ionizes the atmosphere. And plasma is capable of creating waves that are directly discernible, or I guess maybe a better word might be decodable, if you will, by the brain's auditory center. And years ago, in the recording engineering and so-called audiophile field, which I kind of laugh at audiophiles because I'm a recording engineer, and I don't know, it's not an amateur thing for me. There were some loudspeakers that came out that had plasma tweeters. And the plasma tweeters put out audio, but the audio wasn't what you were hearing. You were hearing it irradiating your brain. And I have heard some reports by people that had plasma televisions. And during certain current events, they swore to me that they heard voices in their head while they were watching TV. And they thought they were going crazy. But it wasn't, because engineers figured out that they could embed audio into the signal going to the plasma TV so that the display, the plasma display, would radiate the audio and it would irradiate the brain, but not through the auditory channel. It would just automatically in the auditory system, the receptors in the brain. And so it sounds like sounds coming from the inside of your head. And there's a lot of that going on. Plasma generators are easy to make. I mean, the government has these things, and that's one of the ways that I understand. I never heard this myself, but I've heard reports from people that told me that they were at a political event and they heard a voice in their head tell them to disperse and leave. And it's these plasma generators, so it's pretty interesting. And I think I said enough already to get my YouTube channel probably banned. Funny how truth works. Yeah, you can get in trouble for it. Well, at least they're not going to nail me to a stake. But who knows? But yeah, but that plasma TV probably looked really good. I mean, those plasma displays were known for high refresh rates, and they're pretty cool. So, but what I want to see is that Xiaomi has a new TV that's clear. It's a clear panel, and you turn it on. There's just like it's like a piece of glass, and there's a picture on it. It's kind of hard to see, I guess, in the daytime. But if you got the lights down in the living room, what would be really cool is to have that thing embedded in a pedestal, and so you press a button and this glass thing comes up, and then turns on. That'd be really cool. Maybe I should do that. I think that'd make a good studio display, because it wouldn't interfere with you being able to see through the control room glass, and seeing musicians in the studio. I think that kind of a clear. In fact, you could probably just make, one side of the control room glass. You could probably just make it out of that display, because it wouldn't be hard to find another piece of glass that didn't match it. So, there wouldn't be an equal resonant frequency for both pieces of glass. It could just go through them, through them. Whatever would go through the TV wouldn't go through the other, and vice versa. So, yeah. Well, that's all that counts, man. That's all that counts. I had the 32-inch, and Phoenix decorated it. I had a 32-inch in my exercise room that I used to watch movies on while I was exercising. It was great because I would ride my exercise bike and watch a film, and I realized I'd ridden 45 minutes without even realizing. I got a lot of exercise in that way, excuse me. And when Phoenix, my daughter, decorated the TV, I just unbolted that one from the articulating arm and took it downstairs. So I had a 32-inch, more modern flat screen TV, but it started developing problems. Like 1/3 of the display started flashing, and so I took it apart and I looked at it, and all the interconnects looked okay, and it was just, I don't know how many parts for it. It's a Chinese TV. It didn't cost that much. It cost like less than $200 when I bought it, and power supply was okay, and everything. The tuning section, all this stuff was okay. It was definitely just a display problem, but I think it was an interconnect problem, but I couldn't find it. So one of the things you can do with an old TV, you got to know what you're doing, but you can take the screen out and leave the backlight in, and then you've got like a 32-inch white LED light that you can use for a light source, like for live streaming, for cameras, stuff like that. And I thought about saving that, and I said, I don't need it. I just put it on the recycle truck. Then we went to Costco, and Athula's got a 60-inch TCL, and he told me how much he paid for it. I was like, you got to be kidding. So we went to Costco, and they had one of those left. It was on a special, and I'm going to say it was 13,000 NT, which is about $375 or $400 US for a 55-inch 4K TV. Of course, the thing I noticed about it is when the TV's booting up and you have any kind of a gray screen, you can see that the backlighting is not, there's hot spots. It goes, it's wavy looking. And so that's how they save money, because they're not doing a real uniform backlighting on these panels. But when you're watching a movie and there's a lot of action going on, a lot of scene changes and stuff, you can't really tell. It's only like if they're going to show something that's gray or maybe white, then you can see, like a snowstorm or something where everything's washed out, then you can kind of see that it's not a uniform all the way across. So that's a really good idea. I've heard some good things about charter schools. That's a really, really good idea. But I'm very happy with Phoenix's education here. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't want her educated in the United States. I don't want to have to deal with the problems of kids, as rebellious as they are, and I just don't want her on Jay Leno's, what is it, How Dumb Are Americans show, that kind of stuff. Anyway, yeah, her education is already so high. The thing is education in Taiwan, like elementary school, it's 1 year ahead. So, for example, if a kid that's in third grade in the United States, if he moves or she moves to Taiwan, they'll put her in the second grade. And that's just how it works, unless they go to a specific, like, strictly American school, because all the diplomats and stuff, their kids go to American schools because they're not going to stay here. They're going to go back. But me, I'm Taiwanese, so I'm staying here. So my kid's not in an American school; she's in an international school, and so she's in the third grade. But if for some weird reason she had to attend school in the United States, they would put her in the fourth grade. Yeah. So, pretty amazing. Her math is quite high level. And, of course, it's a bilingual education, so it's really something that she can, at her age, that she can read so much Chinese. It's amazing. I studied Chinese pretty hard, and she's just, she's 9 years old. She blows me away with what she can read. It's nuts. So, it's really amazing. I got to go, folks. It is 12:51. I want to get back to the house and yep, I got some stuff going on tomorrow. You're not. You're not dumb at all. And you ask really good questions, which proves that you're not. I'm a lot older than you, man. And I've been on my own a lot, and I've done stuff that people just dream about. Been really fortunate at that, but I paid a big price. Paid a big price for it, you know. And I had a lot of medical problems and so forth. You know, we each have our own, you know, stories to tell. The advice that I would give young people is to figure out what your trajectory is as early as possible, and don't trust other people to set it. And what I mean by that is, your trajectory will tell you how high you're going to go. If you have a low trajectory, you're not going to attain things that you want if you want them up here. Interesting, there's a German tank that has a very sophisticated fire control system. And it aims the cannon on the tank, and it goes like boom, 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 boom. It'll fire 5 rounds, and all 5 rounds hit the target at the exact same time. Because it's calculated, it fires the first one here, and the second one here, and it takes, you know, longer, you know, and so, yeah. So anyway, they end up going like this and hitting at the same time. So the first one they fired, they need to delay it so it matches with the last one that they fire. And so what it amounts to is it amounts to the angle of the trajectory. And so I've always said to aim high. Like, for example, whenever I was trying to do some kind of collaboration or talk to some company about doing something, I'd call them up and I'd ask for the president. I don't ask for some manager or salesperson. Can I speak to the president of the company, Mr. So-and-so? Who are you? My name is so-and-so. And they don't know who I am, but they don't know, you know, that I'm a nobody or anything like that. What's this about? Well, this is about a business proposal, blah, 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 like that, right? And you'd be surprised at how many high-level people I got to talk with. And they appreciated that. And the other thing I used to do was I found that people would ignore a letter or a phone call, but they would respond instantly to a fax. Boys, those are the old days, because faxes were viewed as being more important. And so figure out your trajectory, because when I was in the music business, you know, and I had managers and stuff, I trusted them far too much. You know, my first recording contract offer that I got from CBS Records, it's a really good thing that I refused to sign it. I passed on it, because my management company just wasn't capable of managing me on that level. But throughout my career, I've trusted other people to manage my trajectory when I should have taken a more active role in it. So I say aim high. Because if you aim high, you might hit it. You might miss it, but if you aim low, you'll definitely miss it. That's the thing. So aim high and figure out what your trajectory is. You know, you gotta know what level you want to be, but aim for that early on, because you want to be able to, you know, because the thing of it is, what goes up comes down, and you know, there's an old saying, you're only as good as your last movie. And someday there'll come a point where they're not going to call you to make movies anymore. You've made your last movie, and that's it. And so then your trajectory is going down. So you just gotta, you know, and it's not that you can't reset it too, because I'm resetting mine, you know, but I have circumstances that are not the same as other people. So the other thing that you can't do is you can't compare yourself to other people too much, because you'll get discouraged. And you have to understand that a lot of people that are where they are have advantages, and maybe even unfair advantages that you don't realize. A lot of these people in the music business, especially, like Whitney Houston was great, but she's Dionne Warwick's relative. There's a lot of that going on. So, I mean, if you don't think she got a boost from Dionne Warwick, I mean, that would be wrong. So, there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, and don't compare yourself, unreasonably. But one thing about working as just an engineer in a studio and as an independent producer and doing like 500 sessions, and working with all those bands in Boston, for every single recording artist signed to a label, I knew 10 that were better, way better. They just way better. But they just didn't have the circumstances, There was a lot of just amazing talent. And I made like a mixtape from 1986 of all this stuff. And when I did a session down in D.C. later that year, I took this mixtape and I played it for the guy that owned the studio. I said, "This is what we're doing in Boston." And I thought he was going to crap his pants. I said, "None of these are signed bands, and they can't get a deal. They can't get anybody to listen to them." So thanks, man. I'm actually in the park today. Yeah, I'm in the park, but I want to do a roof one. I'm going to wait until like 2 weeks when the moon is full again, because it's a new moon now. And you guys, you don't know, I'm a big fan of the moon. It's dark and there's no moon. It's kind of feels weird. So, but that's why when I met Brad Delp from Boston, and within 20 minutes he gave me his home address and told me to send me tapes, and I'll take him over to the president of Epic Records. I mean, that's an amazing contact. It's just amazing. And so I've been fortunate enough to meet different people and have access to them. You have to be careful how you ask for favors and things, but you try to do things to make it worthwhile, for other people. So that's why I haven't, cashed in on a lot of the so-called rock stars that I know, because I just don't want to, impose upon them. So, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm gonna finish this tune and do the release, and we're gonna do the video, and just, hey, who knows? I don't need the money. I'm just doing it for me, You guys take care, and we'll see you next time. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for watching Taiwan Live TV. Thanks for joining, and I don't know. Maybe I'll break out the 12-string next time. I've been in a 12-string mood. So you guys take care, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Yep. I know what you mean. I wasted a lot of my time though with medical problems. Can't get them back. I remember looking out the window going, someday this is going to bite me, but nothing you can do about it. So, guys, take care. Love all of you. Bye-bye.